So, where is this place, New Zealand? Or, as we like to call it, Aotearoa. It's way down at the bottom of the world, floating in the middle of the massive Pacific Ocean. If you look at a map, you'll see Australia chilling out nearby, our bigger, louder cousin. We're kind of tucked away doing our own thing. Being so far from everyone else means we've got a unique vibe. It's a long flight to get here, but it's worth it. You feel like you've found a secret spot, a little slice of paradise that the rest of the world hasn't quite caught up with yet. It's a place where you can still find real wilderness, proper bush that goes on for miles and miles. Our country is mainly two big islands. There's the North Island, which is a bit warmer and has more people. That's where you'll find bubbling mud pools and volcanoes that are still having a bit of a think about what to do next. Then you have the South Island, which is the majestic one. It's got these massive mountains, the Southern Alps, covered in snow. There are also giant glaciers that look like frozen rivers sliding down the mountains, and these incredible fjords, which are like big valleys flooded by the sea. It's pretty dramatic, like something out of a movie, which, it often is. The two islands are split by a bit of water called the Cook Strait, which can get pretty choppy. The land itself is pretty wild. We've got a bit of everything packed into a small space. One day you can be surfing on a black sand beach, and the next you can be hiking through a dense, ancient rainforest that feels like dinosaurs might still be stomping around. We have glowing caves full of tiny worms, which sounds a bit gross but is actually magical. And then there are the mountains, always there in the background, looking epic. Because of all the tectonic plates mucking around underneath us, the land is always changing. We get earthquakes and the occasional volcanic rumble, just to keep us on our toes. It reminds you that nature is the real boss around here. This geography shapes who we are. Kiwis are an outdoorsy bunch because, well, look at our backyard. It's massive and it's awesome. People grow up tramping. That's what we call hiking, in the bush, swimming in freezing cold rivers and camping under the stars. The landscape isn't just something pretty to look at. It's part of our identity. It's what makes us feel connected to this place. It's the fresh air, the green hills, the rugged coastlines. It's the feeling of being small in a big, beautiful world. This is Aotearoa, our home, and it's a pretty choice place to be, I reckon. Long before any Europeans with their funny hats and muskets showed up, New Zealand was discovered by some of the best sailors the world has ever seen. These were the Māori ancestors, who travelled across the vast Pacific Ocean in their waka, which are massive canoes. They came from a place in Polynesia called Hawaii. It wasn't just a casual trip. It was a huge, brave journey into the unknown, navigating by the stars and the ocean currents. They arrived here around 800 years ago, finding a land of giant birds and dense forests, a place completely new to humans. It was a massive undertaking, settling this new land. When they arrived, they set up a society that was deeply connected to the land. Everything was about wānau, hapu, and aiuai. Your identity was tied to your people and your place. You knew your mountain, your river, your ancestors. Life was based around communities, working together to hunt, fish, and grow crops like kumara, a sweet potato they brought with them. They built fortified villages called pā, usually on hills, to protect themselves. It was a society with strong leaders, wise elders, and skilled warriors, all held together by a shared history and culture that was passed down through stories and songs. Spirituality was a huge part of everyday life. Maori believed that everything, from rocks and rivers to people and animals, had a life force, or Maori. There were many gods, like Ranginui, the Sky Father, and Papatuanuku, the Earth Mother. These stories explained the world and provided rules for how to live. The concept of tapu and noa governed everything, from how food was prepared to how you behaved in certain places. It was a way of showing respect for the spiritual world and maintaining balance in the community. These beliefs weren't just old tales, they were the foundation of their entire worldview. This was a rich and complex culture long before the rest of the world knew New Zealand existed. They developed amazing art forms, like carving wood and bone into intricate designs that told stories of their ancestors. They perfected the art of tomoko, the traditional Maori tattoo that shows a person's waka papa or genealogy. They had powerful songs, chants, and the haka, a fierce dance used to welcome guests or challenge enemies. This was a thriving, self-sufficient society with a deep understanding of its environment and a vibrant culture that was uniquely its own, born from the Pacific and raised in Aotearoa. Then, one day, some different ships appeared. In 1642, a Dutch guy named Abel Tasman sailed by, had a bit of a misunderstanding with some local Maori, and sailed off again without even setting foot on land. He put us on the map, though, calling the place New Zealand. For over 100 years, that was it. Then, in 1769, Captain James Cook turned up. He was a bit more successful. He sailed all the way around both islands, made maps, and met with lots of different Māori iwi. His arrival marked the real beginning of contact between Maori and Pakeha, which is the Maori word for Europeans. After Cook, more and more Europeans started showing up. There were whalers, sealers, and traders, all looking to make a buck from the country's resources. Missionaries also came, hoping to convert Maori to Christianity. This period was a real mixed bag. On one hand, Maori got new things like metal tools, potatoes, and pigs, which changed their way of life. But they also got new diseases that they had no immunity to, which were devastating. And they got muskets. The musket wars were a brutal period where tribes with guns fought tribes without them, leading to massive loss of life and shifting the balance of power forever. By the 1830s, things were getting a bit chaotic. There were more and more British settlers arriving, and there was no real law and order to manage the situation. The British government back in London started to think they needed to do something. So in 1840 they sent a representative, William Hobson, to negotiate a treaty with the Maori chiefs. This became the Treaty of Waitangi. It was supposed to be a partnership between Maori and the British Crown. The Maori version said they gave the Queen governance while keeping their own sovereignty and full control of their lands and treasures. The English version, however, said they gave up sovereignty completely. This difference in meaning caused a lot of problems. Big problems. The British thought they were in charge of everything, while Maori thought they were still in control of their own affairs. As more settlers arrived, they wanted more land, and the government started finding ways to get it, often ignoring what the treaty promised. This led to conflict, and eventually to the New Zealand Wars in the 1860s. These were a series of brutal battles fought over land and sovereignty. The colonial government, with its superior firepower, eventually won, and huge areas of Maori land were confiscated. This was a dark time in our history, and the effects of these conflicts are still being felt today. After the wars, New Zealand was firmly a British colony. The settlers got busy building a new country that looked a lot like Britain, but with more sheep. They set up towns, farms, and their own government. For a long time, we were very tied to the mother country. We fought for Britain in the Boer War and in World War I and II. The Gallipoli campaign in World War I in particular was a huge moment for us. We lost a lot of young men there, fighting alongside the Australians. It was a terrible tragedy, but it also helped forge a sense of our own national identity, separate from Britain. We were New Zealanders. The country slowly started to stand on its own 2 feet. We were one of the first places in the world to try out new ideas. We introduced pensions for old people and started to build a welfare state, looking after those who needed help. One of the proudest moments in our history came in 1893. A woman named Kate Shepherd led a massive campaign, and New Zealand became the first country in the world where all women had the right to vote in national elections. It was a huge step forward, and showed that this little country at the edge of the world could lead the way in social progress. We weren't just a copy of Britain, we were trying to build a better, fairer society. Our relationship with Britain changed over the 20th century. We officially became a dominion in 1907, which gave us more self-government. But it wasn't until 1947 that we fully adopted the Statute of Westminster, which basically meant we were properly independent. We still have the British monarch as our head of state, but we make our own decisions. When Britain joined the European Economic Community in the 1970s, it was a big shock for us. We had always sold most of our farm products to them, and suddenly we had to find new markets. It forced us to look at the world differently and build relationships with other countries, especially in Asia and the Pacific. This whole journey, from a remote colony to an independent nation, has shaped who we are. We're proud of our independence, but we also value our history and our connections to other places. We have a reputation for being practical, down to earth, and maybe a bit inventive. We're a small country, so we often have to punch above our weight on the world stage. This process of nation building is still going on. We're always figuring out what it means to be a Kiwi, what our place in the world is, and how to create a country that is fair and just for everyone who calls this place home. So, who lives here now? Well, our population is just over 5 million people. That's not a lot when you look at the size of the country, you know. We've got more sheep than people, which is a classic Kiwi joke, but honestly, it's also true. The population is a real mix of different cultures. About 17% of us are Māori, the Tangata Whenua, or people of the land. They are the original inhabitants. The largest group are people of European descent, mainly from Britain and Ireland, who are often called Pakeha. They make up the majority of the population, but the country is becoming more and more diverse every year. In recent decades, New Zealand has become a real melting pot. We've had lots of people immigrate here from all over the world. There's a large and growing population of people with Asian backgrounds, especially from China, India, and the Philippines. They've brought their amazing food, festivals, and traditions with them, which has made our cities much more vibrant and interesting. We also have a very strong connection to the Pacific Islands. Many people from Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, and the Cook Islands have made New Zealand their home, especially in Auckland, which is the largest Polynesian city in the world. This mix of cultures makes New Zealand a pretty interesting place to live. It's a multicultural society, and for the most part, everyone gets along pretty well. Of course, it's not always perfect. There are still challenges, especially around making sure Māori have a true partnership in the country, as promised by the Treaty of Waitangi. But there's a general feeling that diversity is a good thing. It makes us stronger. You see it in our schools, our workplaces, and on our streets. It means you can get a great flat white coffee, a delicious curry, and a proper hangi, a Maori earth oven feast, all in the same town. Most Kiwis live in the North Island, and most of us live in cities. Life in the city is quite different from life in the wop-wops, which is what we call the countryside. But even our biggest cities aren't huge by world standards. There's still a feeling of community and a connection to the outdoors. We're a young country, and our identity is still being formed by all the different people who have chosen to make this place their home. It's a blend of Maori heritage, British foundations, and a whole lot of new influences from the Pacific, Asia, and beyond. It's a pretty cool mix, eh? In New Zealand, we've got 3 official languages. The first one is English, which is what most people speak every day. It's a bit different from other types of English, though. We have our own slang. We say sweet as when something is good, chur to say thanks, and yeah, nah, which can mean anything from no to maybe. The second official language is Māori, or Te Reo Māori. It's a beautiful language, full of poetry and history. For a long time, it was in danger of disappearing. Kids were punished for speaking it at school, which was a terrible thing. But now, there's a massive effort to bring it back. The revival of Te Reo Māori is one of the most important things happening in New Zealand today. It started in the 1980s with things like Kahanga Rio, which are Maori language preschools where little kids are totally immersed in the language. Now there are Maori language schools, TV channels, and radio stations. More and more Pakeha are learning to Rio as well, because it's seen as something that belongs to all New Zealanders. You hear it everywhere now, on the news, in government, and in everyday conversation. It's a way of showing respect for the country's first people and embracing our unique identity. It's a long journey, but it's happening. Our third official language is New Zealand Sign Language. It's the main language of the deaf community in New Zealand. It's a proper language, with its own grammar and vocabulary, and it's unique to our country. Making it an official language in 2006 was a big step in recognising the rights and culture of deaf New Zealanders. It shows that we're trying to be a country that includes everyone. So we have these 3 languages, each with its own story and its own importance. They all contribute to the sound of our nation, the Kiwi Tangi. Beyond language, our culture is a mix of Māori and Pākehā traditions. From the Māori side, there are things like the pauhiri, a formal welcoming ceremony that happens on a marae, which is a traditional meeting ground. It involves speeches, songs, and pressing noses together, which is called a hongi. It's a very powerful experience. From the Pākehā side, there's a culture that's very informal and loves the outdoors. We love our barbecues, our DIY projects, and our sports. These two streams of culture are increasingly flowing together, creating something that is uniquely Kiwi. It's a culture that values hospitality, community, and a good sense of humour. If you've seen a movie with epic mountains and stunning scenery lately, there's a good chance it was filmed in New Zealand. Our film industry got a massive boost from the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogies, directed by our own Sir Peter Jackson. These movies showed off our amazing landscapes to the whole world and turned parts of the country into Middle-earth. But we do more than just fantasy. We make our own quirky, heartfelt films too. Movies like Whale Rider, Boy, and Hunt for the Wilder People tell stories that are very specific to New Zealand, full of our unique humour and heart. We've got a lot of creative people making cool stuff. Our music scene is pretty awesome too. We've produced some amazing bands and artists who have made a mark on the world. In the 80s, there was the Dunedin sound, with bands like The Chills and The Clean creating a unique style of indie pop. We've had huge international successes like Crowded House, whose songs are known everywhere. And more recently, we've had artists like Lordi, who became a global superstar with her amazing music. There's also a thriving scene of Maori and Pacifica artists who blend traditional sounds with modern music like hip-hop and reggae. Bands like Fat Freddy's Drop have a massive following both here and overseas for their chilled-out dub and soul vibes. But if there's one thing that unites the country, it's sport. Especially one sport, rugby. For a lot of Kiwis, rugby is almost a religion. Our national team is the All Blacks, and they are one of the most famous and successful sports teams in the world. Before every game, they perform the haka, which is an incredible display of power and culture. It's a challenge to their opponents and a way of connecting with their heritage. Watching an All Blacks game is a national event. The whole country stops to watch. We get very passionate about it. When they win, the country celebrates. When they lose, which isn't very often, the country goes into mourning. Of course, it's not just about rugby. Kiwis love all kinds of sports, especially if they involve the outdoors. We're big on cricket in the summer, and netball is hugely popular, especially among women. Our national netball team, the Silver Ferns, are world champions. We're also pretty good at things like sailing and rowing. Because we're surrounded by water, lots of people grow up messing about in boats, and we've produced some of the best sailors in the world. Sport is a massive part of our culture. It's about being active, being competitive, and being part of a team, and of course, beating the Aussies. So, how does the country actually run? Well, our education system is pretty good. School is free and compulsory for kids from age 6 to 16, though most kids start when they're 5. The curriculum is called Te Wariki in early childhood, which means the woven mat, and it's all about weaving together different strands of learning. At school, they learn all the usual stuff like reading and maths, but there's also a big focus on things like outdoor education and learning about New Zealand's culture and history. After high school, we've got 8 universities and a bunch of polytechnics and other institutes where you can learn practical skills. It's a system that aims to give everyone a fair shot. Our healthcare system is mostly funded by the government through taxes. This means that if you're a citizen or a resident, you can go to the doctor or the hospital and a lot of the cost is covered. It's not perfect, and sometimes you have to wait for non-urgent treatment, but the basic idea is that everyone should be able to get medical care when they need it, regardless of how much money they have. We have public hospitals in all the main centres and a network of doctors or GPs in local communities. There are also special services like Plunket, which is a charity that has been looking after the health of babies and their mums for over 100 years. Most Kiwis live in cities, mainly in the North Island. The biggest city by far is Auckland. It's a bustling, multicultural place built on a bunch of old volcanoes. It's got beautiful harbours, so it's known as the City of Sails. It's the economic hub of the country, where most of the big businesses are. Further south is Wellington, our capital city. It's known for being windy, but it's also the coolest little capital in the world. It's tucked into a harbour and surrounded by hills. It's got a great arts and cafe scene, and it's where the government is based. You can see our Parliament building, which is called the Beehive because, well, it looks like one. In the South Island, the biggest city is Christchurch. It's known as the Garden City because of its beautiful parks and gardens. It was hit by some massive earthquakes a few years ago, which destroyed a lot of the old city centre. But it's rebuilding in a really creative and interesting way. It's a city that has shown incredible resilience. Then there's Queenstown, which isn't a big city, but is famous as the adventure capital of the world. It's where you go to do bungee jumping, skiing and jet boating. And there's Dunedin, a city with a strong Scottish heritage and a great student vibe because of its university. Each city has its own unique character. New Zealand's political system is a constitutional monarchy with a parliamentary democracy. That's a fancy way of saying we have a king or queen as our head of state, the British one. But they don't have any real power. The power is with our parliament, which we elect every 3 years. Our voting system is called MMP, which stands for Mixed Member Proportional. It means that the share of seats a party gets in Parliament is roughly the same as its share of the vote. This usually leads to coalition or minority governments, where parties have to work together. Our two main political parties are the Labour Party, which is centre-left, and the National Party, which is centre-right. One of the most defining things about our foreign policy is our anti-nuclear stance. Back in the 1980s, the government declared New Zealand a nuclear-free zone. This meant no nuclear-powered or nuclear-armed ships were allowed in our ports. This caused a big rift with our old ally, the United States, and we got suspended from the ANZUS military alliance. But for Kiwis, it became a really important part of our identity. It was us, a small country, standing up for what we believed in on the world stage. We see ourselves as an independent nation that promotes peace, human rights, and protecting the environment. We work a lot through the United Nations and have strong relationships with Australia and our Pacific Island neighbours. Speaking of the environment, this is probably the most important thing for New Zealand's future. Because we were isolated for millions of years, we have wildlife that is found nowhere else on Earth. We have birds that can't fly, like the kiwi, which is our national symbol. We have the world's only alpine parrot, the kea, which is super intelligent and cheeky. We have ancient reptiles like the tuatara, which is a living dinosaur. Our forests and oceans are full of unique life. To protect all this, we've set up a huge network of national parks and marine reserves. About a third of our land area is protected in some way, but our unique nature is also very fragile. When humans arrived, they brought predators like rats, stoats and possums, which have been devastating for our native birds. We also face massive challenges from climate change, pollution in our rivers, and protecting our oceans. There's a huge national effort called Predator Free 2050, which aims to get rid of the worst introduced predators by the middle of the century. It's a massive, ambitious goal, but Kiwis are passionate about protecting our natural heritage. It's what makes our country so special. New Zealand is a work in progress, a young nation still finding its way, but it's a place of incredible beauty, creativity and heart. Aotearoa is a land that gets into your soul.